What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Ango Show live. I almost botched that intro, but we are live. My name is Ango. Billy TKO is joining us, and we are talking about we're talking about a variety of things today. Last night was AEW Dynamite, and there was some good stuff that happened. I kind of enjoyed it. Like I said, I've been enjoying wrestling without
for sure,
without necessarily having to tweet about it, you know.
Right.
So it was cool. There was a major takeaway, though, which I'm sure we're going to talk heavily about, which is Adam Copeland saying that he's got to go. He's got to dip. So we'll definitely talk about it. There's a lot of stuff. Obviously, the women's tag titles, everybody's going to have their own opinions. I'm curious to get yours, Billy. So we'll definitely talk. And, you know, if you guys want to support the show, there's a couple ways to do so. First thing you could do is just simply click like on the stream if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're on Twitter, you can just simply retweet it. If you guys are on YouTube and you guys want to drop a super chat, feel free to do so. It guarantees your questions and comments get read, which is always appreciated. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, not constantly pushing out the streams or something. Like, it's weird. We're having that issue again, but I think once we continue to get consistent again, maybe it'll get fixed. But
maybe we get back acclimated.
Yeah, for real. I don't know what it is with YouTube, but sometimes it just be like that. Sometimes the internet just not really in your favor, but it doesn't really matter, because if you guys are watching or listening, you know, after it's live, you know, this is going to be a very good live stream, because I have a lot of opinions. I think a lot of people will be kind of shocked, and I'm very curious to hear what Billy has to say, which actually allows me to kick the show off with just your overall thoughts and opinions on AEW Dynamite, right? Like, we just finished with AEW All Out, and we got the return of Orange Cassidy, and you know, we had Lee Moriarty versus the Champ. Like, what are you thinking of Dynamite last night? Do you think they're going into a good direction, or what you thinking?
Well, you know, I'll start off with like the John Moxley and Chris Statlander, excuse me. That was actually a pretty big focal point for me, as I thought that was kind of like a cool way to you know, have the show go. So I was actually a pretty big fan of that. Orange Cassidy obviously being back, that's always important, right? I think Orange Cassidy, whether people want to say it or not, he's a very big piece of AEW, and you know, obviously somebody who's been around since the beginning. I think it's always useful to have somebody like Orange Cassidy, and obviously we had the revealing of the women's tag team championships. We have the Cope thing that we're going to get into in a little bit. But overall, you know, I'll say, like, if I had to rate the show, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10, right? You know, AEW, they hit for me every so often. And I think this is just another one of those examples of, it didn't do everything for me, but it did just enough to make it watchable and make it fun for me. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Obviously, nothing is perfect. Nothing can be perfect in my book, but it seems like they are on the right track, which I think is super important right now, as AEW really needs to find that footing, and kind of like we've talked about, that they are finding that footing. You know what I mean? It feels like they're making momentum and they're making waves for themselves. And I think that should be talked about and that should be discussed. You know, tribalism, all that BS aside, you know, AEW is trying to live in their own bubble again. And I think that should be credited, right? That's something that should be talked about. Them living in their own bubble is the best thing that they can do for themselves. I know this wasn't on the show, but obviously, like at the All Out post scrum media scrum, you know, you had Hangman Page talk about, you know, we're just kind of focused on what we're doing here, and I think that's beautiful publicity for them, and that's the best thing to do.
So I want to touch on that point. I do feel like right now, what I've analyzed from watching AEW, especially, like I said, because I'm not really focused on social media while I'm watching the show. I'm just simply watching the show. But the thing that's kind of been nice about watching AEW as of late, I would say probably in like the last 2 months or so, there does seem to be this rejuvenated focus to kind of going back to the way AEW used to be. And I feel like we're kind of getting to a point where, yeah, by no means is it perfect. By no means is it truly an exciting episode. But I think it's still a good, solid episode, right? So, like,
for sure.
I honestly really don't like the idea of the score system, because we've done that on the channel before, where I'm like, oh, I'll give it a 9.
Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of me throwing a number out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, I could kind of see, like, if you were to judge a show, like, 6, 7 out of 10, like, whatever. I think it's solid. You know what I mean? Yeah. But to me, I don't think it didn't have anything like truly, truly exciting. But the thing that's been so interesting to me is, as somebody who's really hated the Death Rider storyline for a long period of time.
Yeah, we did a lot of pooping on that thing.
It's kind of been nice to see that like even the Death Rider storyline has actually progressed to a point where it's like, okay, there is a little bit of intrigue. Like this whole thing with Chris Statlander is like really interesting to me. Like she won the title, and now more than ever, there's like this feeling about, okay, well, what's going on there? You know, like I have a question mark popping up in my head, like, okay, that's kind of intriguing to me. What are we doing with this, right?
For sure.
And that's kind of been a while. It's been a while since I've really felt that way about AEW. One thing that I thought was really interesting too about AEW Dynamite last night was I am starting to get the feeling that it's like kind of going back to their old ways, but you hit the nail on the head, man. Like they do seem to be just focused on themselves. And I think anytime you ever go back and watch our content where we talked about this, it's like that's where watching AEW is honestly somewhat enjoyable. Like when they just feel like they're focused on their own stuff. And them being focused on their own stuff, like it wasn't like amazing, right? But it was, easy watch. Like it was an easy watch for me last night. I know a lot of my colleagues in the space are probably not going to agree with that. I've seen some people shit on it, but I feel like they've done a really good job of getting me somewhat intrigued by what can happen. And really the thing that I thought, you know, which I would like to talk about is the AEW Women's Tag Team Championship belts, because I do feel as if maybe we're at a stage where, personally speaking, like from my own personal opinion, you need to have the women's tag titles with this women's division. But I am very concerned with how so many of the other belts are booked on the show. Like, how are these going to be booked? You know what I mean? And I genuinely feel as if, I genuinely feel as if like, okay, you need to do this. I'm scared how you go about this. You know what I'm saying? When you see the women's tag titles get revealed, they're essentially the same thing as the men's tag titles. What do you make of it?
Well, so number one, I mean, they are beautiful championships, and I think it's easy to say that the men's are beautiful championships, so I'll just kind of start there. Number two, you know, you kind of said the worry of how they're going to be booked. I think in some degree, it's very fair to have that worry, right? Here's the thing. I could go out and I could give people this long spiel on how I think it's not going to work, right? I think that would also be unfair in some degree. It's fair and then unfair. And I think me going out and judging them immediately would be a little unfair. Although I do understand your take, you know, coming from the basis of, you know, look at everything else and everything that's kind of happened. I'm going to go off the basis of, okay, they're introducing these titles. Obviously, they have a very strong women's division. Okay, this is going to force them to now utilize that women's division on a much higher scale than maybe they have in recent, you know, memory, right?
Yeah.
So now it's going to force their hand here. And if they don't, then guess what? Then you may hear a different tone out of me, because I will come out here and I will say, oh, they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong. Now I'm looking at you and I'm saying, okay, I'm judging a little bit, right? Yeah. Therefore, with that being said, I think that the titles are good for what they're worth. I think, obviously, we had talked before on past live streams and stuff where we kind of always figured that these were coming eventually. But at that time, it really didn't feel like the right time. And it felt like if they would have done it at the times that we were talking about, the reaction then would have been much worse than the reaction that they're getting now, right? Because now I feel comfortable coming out here and saying and being like, okay, well, obviously they're trying to put much bigger focus on themselves, kind of going back to that discussion. And with that, okay, let's see how strongly they can book this tag team division, even though some of these championships maybe haven't been booked the best. Let's just see how they go about it. So That's my takeaway with the women's tag team titles. I'm just kind of, I'm 50-50 with them right now. It's very much in the middle. Okay, if they do something good, great. If they don't, well, I can't say that I expected anything less.
Yeah. I think with the fact AEW revealed the women's tag titles and the way they did it, I think it looks good, right? My concerns that I have for the women's tag team championships solely relies on booking, right? But I've actually been an advocate for them to have these belts because TNA has them, WWE has them. I mean, all these promotions have women's tag team championship belts. And the truth is, you know, I just saw Chester put it in the chat. He said, well, there's a lot of random tag teams. I mean, if you really think about it, though, look at WWE, look at TNA. A very, very
Everybody
large
has random tag teams.
Exactly. It's a large percentage of them. So my concern is not so much the random tag teams, because you could do some stuff with that and you could fix that. And there are a couple tag teams. You got Triangle of Madness, and you might bring in Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter from WWE, right? There's things you could do about it. But I just want to see them actually put an emphasis on it, because I do see other titles, sometimes they kind of slip through the cracks. But I'm happy that they exist, and I'm happy that they revealed them. I thought it would have been kind of cool if they did something a little bit different with the title design, because it's the same as the men's. But deep down inside, I am excited to see how they go about it, and I wish them the best of luck. I don't know if I should be excited that it's going to work out well, because as we've seen in so many other companies, women's tag team belts don't really work out well, but it is something to be intrigued by for sure.
For sure. And that's why I say it's like a 50-50 thing. I don't think you're wrong if you say that you're not excited for them. And I can also see how people could be excited for them. It very much is a 50-50 type of thing right now. You're just going to have to kind of wait and see how they're booked going forward. You know what I mean? And I think that's when people will be able to make the true judgment on those championships.
Yeah. One point that I did want to make too, I did talk about this in videos in the past, whenever there was rumors of them doing it or when Tony Khan would talk about it. But the one thing is, sometimes people will say, hey, they have too many titles. And that is true, but if you think about it, they did technically lose a title with the Continental Championship being unified with the International. Yeah. So, like, in a way, you know, it's kind of the way it is. What I'm very curious about, though, is how, not only how they book it, right? Because obviously that's the big question mark, but it's how long until you get sick and tired of focusing on the women's tag team division. And the reason why I say that is because it seemed like for WWE, there's been spurts, and obviously these are two different companies, but there's been spurts of time where like WWE was really, really focused on it. And then there would be times where WWE was not focused on it at all. And then there would be times where it's like, it was kind of a curse, right? To have the women's tag team championships. So I do kind of question, okay, like, will AEW a year or two from now put a focus on these titles, or is this like a temporary thing? I would like to think it's not going to be temporary. There's been a lot of criticism here. I've seen a lot of tweets. I've seen a lot of videos where people have been very critical of AEW introducing these. But I just think the nature of the business and where we currently are at, how can you have men's trios belts, men's tag team belts, men's, mid-card belts, world title, and then it's like the women only have 2 singles belts to go for? Like, if you want an equal playing field, technically speaking, which AEW, you know, they were the ones who said, like, from their initial statement of what they're going to be as a business, I think that's a very important aspect to remember, is like, you do have to have an equal playing field. So for the women, you know, the way I look at it, though, is you can't just do things just to do things for the sake of doing it, right? And I feel WWE is guilty of this. Like WWE, I think TNA, I think a lot of wrestling companies, or a lot of companies in general, are, you know, they're like, well, we have to do this because we have to, right? I think there should be a want. And I do think the way Tony Khan has publicly spoken about women's tag team belts in the past, I think there is a genuine want for him to actually do it. I do think they have a deep roster, and now it's, okay, you got to figure out how to make this tag team division work. Ty Mello and Anna Jay, right? Like
Anna Jay.
Like there's stuff there. Like, they should definitely be competing, right? You have Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Like, you should be doing something.
That'll be nice.
Exactly.
Right. And you have 2 shows to run this across.
And honestly, what I would be doing is making it a priority on Collision. Because
for sure, because that would add excitement to Collision.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to mention something. You and I had a conversation many years ago. It was back when Rampage was a thing. You and I had this conversation. We talked about how good at the time Rampage's storytelling was, and I remember I disagreed with you a little bit, and you actually said, you were like, no, like, the storytelling is actually really good. And the reason why that was is because at the time, what they had chose to do is, okay, well, one week they would focus heavily on something, and then next week it would be another thing, and then they would follow that third week up with the thing that you seen in the first week. And I remember being like, oh man, like that didn't really make sense to me at the time. But now that we talk about these, and I'm going to bring it back here, you know, these women tag team championships, you know, when we talk about focus and how do they put that focus on them? I think that is a perfect strategy. You know, say for instance, they keep it on Collision. Well, okay, maybe they can't be on Collision every week, but let's make sure that we're being what's the word that I'm looking? Making sure that we're being on top of in 100%, making sure that the storyline is flowing all the way through. So if we miss it one week, okay, well, that second week we'll pick it back up and make sure that there's still something going on, and just maybe airing a vignette in that middle week. Like, I know that probably sounds crazy when I'm talking about it, but it's the truth.
No.
And I think that is a perfect way to book them.
Yeah, no, that is the truth, right? Like, it's not something that has to be on TV every week, but there should be some sort of mention of it every week. There should be some sort of goal or purpose or some sort of something that kind of tells you that it's important and you got to get excited about it every week, right? And that's why I love video packages so much. Like, an example that comes to mind is like Rusev, right? Like, Rusev may not wrestle every single week on Raw, but then there was a vignette kind of letting you know what Rusev is up to or what's going on. So like, that's just an example, but I bring that up because with this, I remember those conversations we used to have. The best way to introduce a title is by making it clear that people want the title. So even if the belts aren't being defended or not even being on TV, then there should be
showing the chase.
Yeah, like there should be some sort of video package where Tekla is, cutting a promo with the Triangle of Madness and be like, I want my girls after these belts. We are gunning for gold, whatever it may be. Our goal is to win every title in the division, like whatever it might be. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of cool stuff there. And then I think
it's just putting purpose.
Yeah, and it's just like those little video packages do make a difference on TV because it's a reminder to you that the company still sees the value in promoting what it is. Like my thing is, like, when you look at the tag team division for the men's side, you go back to the early days of AEW. I mean, tag team wrestling, you can argue, was more important than the world title. Honestly.
For sure, dude. Yeah. I mean, if you look back at that old tag team division and what it looked like, for sure.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, if tag team wrestling was such a big thing then, why did it fall off? And it fell off because there was no week-to-week continuity after so long.
Correct. We weren't staying consistent with what was happening.
And now if you look at it in 2025, right, especially in recent months, and now Brodito carries the men's tag team titles, they're a makeshift tag team, but it ends up working out, and they had an awesome match with Gates of Agony yesterday, right? So like, you see these things, you see these things on TV, and you're like, okay, they're starting to pick up with the men's division. How do you do it with the women, and how does it translate? And I think really the answer is just continuity, and there's got to be some sort of continuity, and it doesn't always have to be matches, but this is where Collision does help out a lot, because what I would do is maybe start having random women's tag team matches. And by the way, my big criticism that I've had with AEW is these all-star 8-man tag team matches for $500,000.
Yeah, no good.
Like, no, AEW, let's not do that anymore. Let's get away from the $800,000, $500,000, $200,000 cash prize. Instead, what you do is you say, hey, so-and-so and so-and-so are going to compete against so-and-so and so-and-so in a random tag team match. And then the winner of that match will have another match the following week. And you're going to build up these tag teams.
Get opportunity.
Yes. So,
the opportunity at the number one contendership.
Yes. Now, sometimes Tony Khan does fall into the area of, hey, I'm just going to do random matches, like we saw with Lee Moriarty yesterday. But
here's your perfect chance to do random matches.
This is your time to do random matches with a tag team division that is trying to grow, right? And so there is a lot of intrigue for me. I'm not shitting on it by any means, because it is going to be a challenge for AEW, but I do think AEW could figure it out. And I think AEW, realistically, if I were AEW, this is probably going to piss off some people, but if I were AEW and you're looking at the landscape of professional wrestling right now, WWE has always been inconsistent with the women's tag titles. I'm going to be very, very, very honest with everybody, because I know people are going to expect me to shit on WWE here, but I have talked about this at length before. The condensed version is quite simple. WWE has just gotten dealt a bad hand with those women's tag titles. From the very beginning, there was injuries, and throughout time, more injuries, and it just seemed like every time somebody won the belt, there was more injuries. There was
sprinkle a little bit of drama on there too.
Yeah, so if I'm AEW, what I would do is say, listen, man, like, WWE has shown us that they have women's tag titles, and at times it could work. They've shown us several times that it can't work. Let's show the entire world why we can make this work, right? And if AEW really tries to make this a prestigious thing, and this is what I love so much about tag team wrestling, which also gets me a lot of heat on the internet. But the thing that I genuinely love about this is how many people have broken up in a tag team and eventually chased world championship gold. There's been several.
Numerous.
And I know this gets me heat because it defeats the purpose of the tag team division. But imagine if you have, and we'll just use Sky Blue as an example. I think this is a fun example. She is somebody who has a very, very, very high ceiling, in my opinion, as a potential single star.
Sure.
Right now, as it currently stands with Mercedes and Tony and Chris Statlander and Willow and all these other women that are kind of at the top of the women's division, Sky Blue being at the top of the women's division is very difficult at this time. So what I would do is, hey, let's have Julia Hart and Sky Blue in these tag team matches. And then maybe a year or two from now, Sky Blue ends up breaking away from the group and then goes for singles gold. Again, I understand it's not a popular take. I have gotten shit on this kind of stuff before. But I do think some people can utilize the tag team division as a way to remain relevant on TV while getting the opportunity to get over with the fans. And then you can kind of move them up as it so happens. But the only way that works is you got to put them on TV, right? You cannot expect somebody to get over if they're not on TV. So this is now an excuse to get more people on TV. It's like a win-win situation.
It is. It's a win-win all around. This is the way to, again, like you kind of said, do those random matches and make something of yourself, right? Because kind of going back to what you said with WWE, it was just injury after injury after injury. This is the perfect chance for AEW to capitalize on something that maybe somebody else fully hasn't. You know, you could say in some degree TNA has done pretty well with theirs. But even in that regard, TNA is, and this is just the truth, maybe not fully on the level that AEW is. This is a great opportunity for AEW to shine in a place that other places are not. So yeah, I fully agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's definitely a lot of ways to go about it. And I know Vashon just put it in the comment. He said Tony can't just strictly book them on Collision. I think they have to from time to time be showcased on Dynamite, which is true, and you have to do it on Dynamite. But what I'm saying is to use Collision as a tool for those random women's tag team matches. You know, that's the thing is like right now you're introducing a whole new division and you're going to be introducing makeshift tag teams. You have to utilize them in some capacity. And that's where
you
Collision
have to make them, if they can get over on Collision, bring it to Dynamite.
Exactly. I think that's a very key point, because now if you get over on Collision, you go on Dynamite, you're going to get over, you know, and here's the thing, right? And this is what's fun to me. I see a lot of people in the chat talking about Athena and Billy, right? And it's like, dude, they're great. The Minion thing is cool, whatever. But that's an ROH act. Can we somehow get that to be a consistent act on AEW television? Well, here's my issue with that. Athena, to me, 1,000 million days, trillion days as women's ROH champion.
Ring of Honor champion.
I don't think she should be subjected to the tag team division. But it would be kind of fun where you're like, hey, Athena's going to use that as an opportunity to get more on Dynamite. And then, by the way, she officially breaks away from Billy Starks, and next thing you know...
Exactly, and this is your way to get her in that main event scene.
Yeah. There's a lot of flaws and there's a lot of holes with AEW booking. Even with my praise that I have for the show, there are things, historically speaking, that makes it kind of scary, but I think I'm going to give them a little bit more of my faith here and say they could do it. I think it's going to be more so that it's going to fall on the talent, obviously, but thankfully we're in a situation where women's wrestling in 2025 has just been so good that there is a little bit more confidence. And I think this is, you know, Tony Khan's been talking about women's tag team belts for a while. So why didn't it work out in the past, or why didn't he introduce it in the past? I think there's been injuries across the division. I think there's been things across the division that have made it harder. I think now is the perfect time to pull the trigger. And you do it at a time where, again, this is your opportunity to show the world, hey, we're going to do it differently than TNA. We're going to do it differently than WWE. Because, you know, let's just be real. It's a thing that exists everywhere, but it's not a thing that has truly become a thing.
Gotten over. Yeah, it's never really gotten over to the extent that maybe you wanted it to. You know, I know I'm going to kind of switch it up a little bit here, but a person who was heavily, you know, thought about on last night's Dynamite was Britt Baker.
Yeah.
And I think that's another person that you can just kind of, you know, float into the mix here if you want to get her back acclimated, and you do eventually bring her back. That was just a thought process of mine.
Now, who would you pair with Britt Baker, though?
That's a good question, because off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody like in particular.
Yeah.
Like at first glance, I can't. Because obviously Britt Baker is somebody. Obviously, they brought her back with the Mercedes Moné thing. You know, a little while back, and that just obviously flopped the way that it did. But it's hard to sit here and think about right off the top. Again, just somebody that I think could, benefit, maybe coming back, getting back acclimated into the system, going and chasing the world championship eventually. You know what I mean?
What I love, I see some people in the chat. Shout out to Mike and Bonkers and Sports Time Machine. They've all said Jamie Hayter. Which,
Jamie Hayter, yeah, that's a great example right away.
And again, the way I'm looking at it is like, okay, what can they do? Oh, you put them in a tag team, and then what?
You can create a great storyline out of that.
Yeah, there's some fun things you could do, and listen, there's no way to really know for sure, but there are ways about this. Like, I think like Deonna Purrazzo and Taya Valkyrie, like it's kind of been on the shelf, but. Like,
there are so many names, so many that have, if you just look and again, this is where a lot of, and I'm sorry to cut you off again, but this is where a lot of our gripes, have came with AEW. When you look, think about how many names I said, oh man, I can't come up with any names off the top of my head because I couldn't. Think about how many names people just named. Right? There was Taya Valkyrie, Deonna Purrazzo, Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, so many people that have in some cases been a tad bit underutilized. And that's kind of always been our talking point when it came to AEW. It was never that AEW was like the worst thing on planet Earth. How many people I know, Ango's taken a lot of shit for it over time. But it's true. It was never really that. It's giving criticism. Those are criticisms. Why is a person like Jamie Hayter not being utilized the way that she should? Why is Britt Baker? And granted, I understand injuries and things of that nature, but why don't we have plans set in place for them when they come back? And this, now going back to those tag team championships, is a perfect place to get somebody back acclimated almost instantly and give them something to do. So that's just my thought process on it.
Yeah, and then I think there's like a question too of like, okay, well, what happened to Camille? She's not been on AEW television. Is she going to come back? Well, if there's a way for her to come back, I don't know her situation. It's very complicated and weird and questionable, but like Camille is still a great wrestler and great performer. Can you do something with Camille? Matt in the chat said Abaddon has been underutilized too. Abaddon has gone from the company.
Gone. Yeah, I was about to say, isn't she gone?
She's gone from the company. So that's an issue that AEW has too, is that there's been so many inactive talent where you don't even know if they're in the company or not.
Correct. Again, that goes back to our criticisms that we've had. Yeah. Think about that. You mentioned somebody who's not even on the roster anymore, and you probably had no idea. Yeah. Like, that's something that should be discussed. And again, it goes back to, this is a perfect time and example of, this is a way that you are going to be able to legitimately utilize, in some cases, all of your women, right? In some cases, right? Because even, let's be real here, they're probably not going to be flawed to it, but you'll have a TBS champion like Mercedes Moné going to chase her 10th belt. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bound to happen eventually.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of things to mention. I know Vashon just mentioned too, the Renegade Twins. Like, that's another possibility.
Yes.
Kiera Hogan is gone from the company, so unfortunately, Vashon, that's done with. But there are people even in ROH that you could look at here, and I think that's always a possibility too. One thing I do want to say, and then we'll kind of move on, is when you look at AEW and you look at their women's tag team division, we know the rollout, we've seen the belts, we know that they exist, we know they got plans for it, whatever it may be. The one thing I'm genuinely asking for from AEW, and it's my final point, is that when you do these tag team titles and they are defended, please get away from the other gimmicked bullshit that you're doing. The All-Star tags, the things like that. Because the All-Star tags is a great excuse to get more talent on TV, but a better excuse to get talent on TV is by actually building the division, right? They didn't have to build a tag team division at the start of AEW because they brought in so many legit tag teams, right? SCU and Private Party and Helico and what was his name? And Helico and Jack what was his name? Jack he did the 630 splash, Jack Evans. Like, they had such a sick tag team division in the start of AEW where it's like you didn't really have to build up. It was just like, all right, throw tag team matches out there. Do the same thing. That's all I'm asking, is put these women's tag teams, put them in matches, and then just let people decide who they want to actually become a fan of. And I think once you do that, it's going to be an amazing thing. And for everybody who's being critical of the women's tag team titles, I will criticize. Trust me, mark my words. You guys are listening to it. I will criticize once I see what they do or don't do. But right now, to sit here and have like a uniformed opinion that's like up negative about it, it's very hard to do that considering the entire industry has kind of sucked with women's tag team belts.
And be critical on something that doesn't really have a standard yet.
And they have to create the standard quickly and do it the right way. And that's their responsibility. But if today, we get the belts revealed and then it's like we go to Wrestle Dream, and then after Wrestle Dream, it's like an afterthought. I'm like, okay, I don't really care.
Yeah, then you're going to hear me judge.
Yeah, then it's a problem. But for now, I do think there is a little bit of intrigue on my end, and I want to be fair about that.
Mine as well.
I want to turn our attention to Adam Copeland. That was interesting.
A lot of hot takes on the internet as of recently over Adam Copeland. It's been less than 24 hours since it's occurred. But yeah, people have some interesting takes. Ango, what do you think about Adam Copeland?
So obviously Edge goes backstage with Christian. He can't do this anymore. This has happened to him before, which is true. We saw the whole Judgment Day thing back in WWE and Beth and everything, but he can't do this anymore. He's got his family, and Christian Cage says he doesn't have his family anymore. Adam Copeland shakes his hand and says, "Yes, you do." He says he doesn't know if he'll be back. Now, listen, I'm not dumb. I'm very aware of things, but there is a fun conversation to be had here. Social media has gone absolutely crazy about the idea of Adam Copeland going to WWE for John Cena's last match. Now, I want to talk about this because the real question that I have here is Adam Copeland leaving AEW for WWE? And I think this is a legit question based on what we saw on Dynamite. Again, Copeland is backstage with Christian. I don't know when I'll be back, if I'll be back, whatever. Now, there has been a lot of rumors that maybe Adam Copeland could be returning to WWE for a return for John Cena's last match. Now, technically speaking, I don't know the contract situation for Adam Copeland, but the rumor is that it is, in fact, up October 2025. I don't know if that's true. I do not work for AEW. I don't have that confirmation. But what I will say is this. The idea of Adam Copeland going to WWE and being John Cena's final match would obviously be awesome. Instead, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get Joe Hendry versus John Cena on a random episode of Raw in Boston, and you're going to get Gunther and John Cena. Adam Copeland at some point will probably be back in AEW. This is all for social media. But imagine if Tony Khan did say to Adam Copeland, you can go and do that one match with John Cena. Imagine if they struck a deal with WWE. It would be insane. I don't think that's likely, but of course the internet is going crazy about this whole theory.
So now here's one thing that I'm going to say, and these are two different regimes. We have seen somebody from AEW on WWE TV. It was Chris Jericho. He was on the Broken Skull podcast. Obviously, that's a little bit different. It was a podcast series, whatever, but it was still a part of WWE television at the time. So I understand that it was a different regime. I also understand that business is business, right?
Yeah.
And okay. So I hear what you're saying. Very simple. He's going to end up back in AEW. He'll probably just pop back up. Problem is he just popped back up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just did that. Why would you do it again? Because technically Cope was supposed to go help Christian. Remember, that was like the whole deal.
Yeah.
Because he was going to help Christian with the whole the patriarchy thing. So they pull him off TV for why? What is the reasoning? So I do think that the internet's narrative is kind of fun. And one thing that we like to do over here is fantasy books. So why not play into it a little bit, right? If, and this is a very strong if, so let's emphasize that. If Tony Khan said, hey, Adam, you're good. Go ahead. Go do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I understand the history. I'm a wrestling fan at the end of the day. I remember the feud. I remember how important it was. I remember everything about it. And he says, hey, Adam, go ahead and go to WWE. And WWE accepts that offer and says, absolutely, Adam, you can come in here for one match and then you can get back to doing what you were doing. But we really want to bring you in for this. And I understand that you're on contract and blah, blah, blah. And all the loopholes that you have to go through. I am here to tell you that all the tribalism bullshit will die right there in that moment. The reason why and I'm not saying it actually will, but figuratively, I think in some cases it will, because that diminishes it right there. You're telling me that a guy like Tony Khan, who has had people go out on his television show and shit on WWE, and somebody like Triple H, who is in some cases literally tried to stop AEW from running a business the way that they have. They came together and they did something for the fans collectively. I know it's wishful thinking, but in some cases, I think it would be the greatest thing of all time. Me personally, I think that would be awesome as a fan, and I think fans would have to appreciate that, because that would truly be every single wrestling company listening to what their fans think, listening to their fans. And of course, in some cases, we've gone out and we've said, oh yeah, like they've listened to the fans here, they've listened to the fans there, and then they just completely go away from the fans. This would be the one time where they just all listened and heard what we said. And I think it would be a very, very smart decision for them to make. Again, I'm going off the wishful thinking of what happened with Chris Jericho and the Broken Skull podcast many years ago. I do think it is possible. I don't know. Just me saying it, though.
I think there's so much fun that could be had with the idea of AEW being like, you know what, fuck it, do it.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much fun, dude, because imagine him pulling up in WWE and then on Wednesday shows up on Dynamite. Do you understand how loud that pop would be coming back to Dynamite?
But not even that. I think like in general, like, hey, like, listen, I'm not dumb. I understand not TKO. I understand AEW, by the way, would have no incentive to doing this. Just being very clear. They're getting counter-programmed.
No, there's no win for them.
Yeah, but what I love about this is I think Tony Khan is a true wrestling fan. And I think Tony Khan has a lot of massive respect for John Cena and obviously Edge. I think what would be fun, though, like if we're playing fantasy booking, like if Tony Khan were to be like, you know what, TKO, you guys can have Edge for one night. However, you guys have to thank AEW live on television. If you're WWE,
tune into Dynamite on Wednesday.
If you're WWE, it's hard to imagine a scenario. It's not hard to imagine a scenario where Michael Cole would be on commentary and say, hey guys, WWE is committed to listening to the fans. We would like to thank Tony Khan of AEW for allowing us to give the fans what they truly want.
Oh my God.
Like I could see something like that happening, bro.
My God.
I could see something like that happening. And if you're AEW, it's like, hey, you got your name listed on WWE. You got your name mentioned on WWE in a way that wasn't negative. It's not the Sami Zayn promo from Raw years ago. Yeah, oh, you could have asked me about AEW, you know? I'm just saying.
That would be a very good light for them.
It would be fun. Do I think it is likely? No, I don't. Do I think this is fun to talk about? Yes. I think this is the kind of stuff that we should be talking about in professional wrestling. The crazy what-if scenarios. And I will say, I genuinely believe with all my heart, and I genuinely believe this, and this is the thing that I do love about this era of professional wrestling. The idea that TKO and AEW striking up a deal to make something happen is not far-fetched, in my opinion.
No, of course not, because at the end of the day, business is business, right? I mean, it's just the truth. You can't say that business isn't. It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're both competing in the wrestling business, that's almost better that you guys do business together. You know what I'm saying? It's almost better that you guys work together and figure something out. So yeah, kind of like you're saying, you know, man, it's fun to talk about that. That's the important of pro wrestling, right? It's the what if scenarios. It's the, you know, in a dream world, how could this happen? And this would obviously be that scenario right there. And obviously, the funny part is if this just happened on a random Dynamite and everything that happened on at All Out didn't happen, I do think there would be a different conversation being held, and we'd probably be sitting here like, what the hell are they doing? But instead, we're sitting here playing fantasy booking. But the true reality behind this is look at what just happened on Twitter. When have we ever seen John Cena go out and ask the fans all the things that he's saying? You know, they get the match with AJ Styles and things of that nature. When do we ever see something like that happen from John Cena? So and this is why I don't think it's maybe as far-fetched as we think it actually is. They're going to do anything for John Cena. Anything.
Yeah.
And if John Cena truly is going on the internet and saying, I want this done, I want this done, and I want this done, they're going to get it done one way or another.
But just so we're clear, though, John Cena and AJ Styles was always part of the plan.
For sure. I think that's very easy to say. I do. And I actually fully agree with you. It probably was always a part of the plan, just as much as I think, a guy like Dominic Mysterio is probably in the plans. And kind of like you said at the end, we're probably going to see Gunther. But the true reality, I think, behind all of this is if WWE wants to get it done, 100% they can get it done, no problem.
I really think if you're looking at it, aside from War Games, because I do think John Cena competes in War Games, which makes sense. I think you have to have Joe Hendry, Dominic Mysterio, and Gunther. Those are the final three. And I think what ends up happening, I think the way it ends up working, which is so significant, is you could do the situation where Joe Hendry, like they have a random Raw in Boston in November, I think, or October. And it's John Cena could go out there, cut a promo, say Joe Hendry's name. Joe Hendry comes out, impromptu match. You could do something like that. And the reason why I like this is think of Kurt Angle and John Cena and John Cena's debut. And now it's roles reversed.
It would be a very good way to bring in somebody like Joe Hendry onto the main roster.
Yeah. I think that's a way to do it. I know it's not the most popular thing, but WWE, and by the way, I just want to be clear on this. John Cena told Joe Hendry specifically, if you want the match with me, make it to the point where people want it. I do think people would want it. I think people would be
we're sitting here talking about it. There's a case that people want it.
So I do think there is some level of that happening. I think him versus Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship
has to happen
because John Cena should become Grand Slam champion. And then John Cena dropping the belt and being a transitional champion to Gunther as Saturday night's main event allows that to happen as well. And then what I foresee happening is WWE moving Gunther to SmackDown with the Intercontinental title and the US title.
Moving the US title. Yeah.
Don't be shocked if I'm right. Don't be shocked. 42.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I actually think you're right. I don't think you're wrong at all in this circumstance, but I do think that there is a world where this I just think it could happen. I know it sounds far-fetched, but maybe I'm a heavy believer, and I like to believe, and I like to have something to look forward to. And part of me wants to look forward to it, because why'd they just have him walk away if they were just going to have him? They just brought him back. I don't know. A lot of question marks. A lot of big question marks.
And one thing I will point out, too, is I think Darth Bane kind of made a point that me and you haven't touched on, but he says do a one-off trade. Edge goes to WWE for Cena's last match, and then WWE sends Styles to AEW for a match against Okada or whoever. So one thing that you could do, too, is because obviously AJ wants to potentially retire next year. That's the rumor.
Yeah.
We don't know 100% how true that is, but if you wanted to, you could do a trade-off right here, right? You could send AJ Styles for one match. This is a great
opportunity.
And the thing is, it's like, at the end of the day, like I know the Will Ospreay AJ thing gets brought up a lot. Ospreay's out, so maybe that doesn't necessarily work. But there is a circumstance in where you can make it work, and that's the beautiful part of it. If you really, really, really want to sit at a table together and say, hey, can we make something work where we both benefit from it? And we're going to go back to war anyways, but for now, let's do some good business. I don't think there's any shame.
Like a peace treaty.
I don't think I don't think WWE has this like shame associated with anything. Like I think WWE has this level of like, man, if it makes good business, we'll fucking do it. And to be honest with you, those are the best business people. Like if Tony Khan, I saw somebody in the chat brought up the whole Sting and WWE Hall of Fame thing. Tony Khan talked about it. He's like, I didn't talk to Sting about it. If Sting talks to me about it, we'll go from there. It's like, I don't think Sting went to Tony Khan. I don't know. But like, I think deep down inside, business people, what makes business people smart is saying, hey, we're in fucking competition, but if we could do something that benefits us in the slightest, we'll do it. And with no shame.
For sure.
They'll go back to their shitty tactics after, but I think they'll do it. And listen.
Yeah, dude, it's like having a day ceasefire, right? Like everybody put them down and let's figure something out for the day.
I know Thomas Franco said in the chat, TKO is all about money. They are. So at the end of the day, thankfully,
what's going to make them money?
Thankfully, when a company's all about money, that means they're going to do something if it means more money. And that means, hey.
And I'm here to tell you, Edge and John Cena are going to make them money.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know what would be kind of cool, too, is like, hey, maybe this. I don't think this is realistic, but I think it would be kind of fun for somebody to be, if we're just realistic about it, and I know, again, this is all fantasy talk, right? But like the idea of somebody being like, hey, you know what? there's all they need is one move or one business decision to come together to say, you know what, we could change the landscape together. Let's be real. WWE doesn't need to help AEW in the slightest, and they probably won't, right? But all it takes is one thing to be like, you know what, let's come together. And then who knows, maybe if the experience is good, maybe you see a whole change of heart where it's like, hey, we're not going to be best friends, but we'll do some more stuff together. And I think deep down inside, that could be like if Edge were to go to WWE for a one-off, it could be the introduction to say, hey, you know what? Chris Jericho is probably leaving AEW to go to WWE. He's probably leaving our company to sign with you guys, right? We'll let him off the contract earlier. We'll let him off sooner to go to you guys. But next time you guys have a talent who like openly wants to come to AEW and we're interested in them, can you do the same? I don't know. Again, we're spitballing. It's fantasy talk.
We're just throwing shit, but it is crazy because we talk about like history, right? In WCW and WWE, and when you look back at that history, it was a very bad history. Like it sucked, right? Like it's just the truth. The way that things went down, it fucking sucked because, of course, it was fun for the fans, but when you look at it from a talent perspective and everything like that, it was very much what it is today. Yeah. It was you can't talk about this company, you can't say this, you can't say that. Realistically, you could easily rewrite history.
I'll be right back, Billy. Hold on. I'll let you take the lead. I'll be right back.
Yeah. You could easily rewrite history in some cases. And what I mean by that is you could easily, just choose to, and I'm going to sound crazy saying this, but you can choose to, in some cases, just be kind to one another, picking up on what Ango said a moment ago is, Chris Jericho's coming over to WWE and hey, we're going to let him off the contract. And hey, and I'm just going to spitball a name, but Kevin Owens, he wants to go travel and do some different ventures, right? Maybe we want to see Kevin Steen back, right? That is a perfect example. Okay, well, Kevin Steen wants out of his contract a little bit early. Okay, well, he wants to go to AEW, and hey, our relationship with AEW really isn't as bad as it actually was once before. So yeah, Kevin, you're good. We can knock this one month off track, and you can go sign with AEW, and they have a big show coming up. Like, they don't have to dislike each other. They don't have to be at war with one another all the time. You have to think we're going on 2019, so 6 years of AEW's existence now, and you have to think, I can't remember exactly when the WCW and that war, I know it started in like 96, 95, but WCW existed for a long time prior to that, but the real war didn't last that long. Maybe 95 to 2001, so 7 years, like it wasn't that long, and it feels like AEW is going to last longer than WCW did, because again, as much money as Tony Khan wants to put into AEW is how much money that Tony Khan is going to put in AEW, and that's how long they're going to stay. And it looks like there's no stopping that. They just introduced the women's tag team championships yesterday, so AEW is going to continue on, and they are going to continue forward. And I think the best thing that they can do as true competitors is actually come together and give the fans what they want. And again, it's strong fantasy booking, and it's strong fantasy booking probably very, very far away, and they're all going to compete with each other because, hey, WWE wants to be the big monopoly company. Truth is they don't have to be. Like, they're on Wednesdays. Like, you're not even really at war with these people. You're just pretending to be at war with them. You're saying that they're getting in your way. No, they're getting in your way of pay-per-views, but even then, WrestlePalooza, hey, we'll knock it down to 3 o'clock, and that way, when 7 o'clock rolls around, our 4-hour pay-per-view is done. Yeah. And guess what? You can go do your pay-per-view, and everything is good. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit crazy in some cases that these companies, they're still at war when technically it's just all a facade, and they don't really have to be. Truth is, WWE is just a monopolized company. That's what they want to be, but they don't necessarily have to be. It's all business at the end of the day. So, yeah. I was spitballing there for a minute. I was going, brother.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was a super chat from It's Zabdi for $1.99. He says, why is Edge returning to WWE? Nobody said that he is returning to WWE.
No.
There's a lot of speculation based on the fact of how he was positioned yesterday on Dynamite that he could be going back, and we're just having fun talking about it. And that's all it is. It's a fun conversation.
Don't want to offer any misconceptions.
Listen, it's a fun conversation to be had. We're spitballing things. That's what makes it fun. But thank you for your super chat. I appreciate it. One thing I will say before we end the show is that there is a lot of fun to be had in a perfect world where WWE and AEW would just randomly announce something. It would turn.
Just, hey, we're going to coexist.
Yeah. The truth is WWE just wants to control, it's not even just the wrestling industry, but sports and entertainment, the way they're doing things. It's like they don't want anybody watching anything else. Yeah.
It's monopolized.
And
we know what they want.
And the reality is that's what makes them smart though. Like,
for sure, yes, because as a corporation and a company, yes, that's the right thing to do. As a fan, I hate it. But again, I got to give AEW, for instance, I have to give them props. They moved one of their biggest shows All Out to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That way people could watch WWE at 7 o'clock, right? Instead of making them choose. AEW moved that. Obviously, WWE as a business did what is, hey, best for business. We got to put it on at 7 o'clock. And hey, that just so happens to be when All Out's going to come on. So WWE in that moment just did not care. And here we are, AEW moves it from 3. Their pay-per-views are normally 4 hours. So it's done at 7, and then you can go watch WWE. So yeah, obviously WWE is doing what's best for them, and they're doing the right thing. They're monopolizing. They're doing the right thing. At the end of the day, doesn't mean it sucks less as a fan.
Yeah. Shoe Connoisseur wants to know: are you guys going to NXT at the Masonic Temple? I just saw that they're having the show at the Masonic Temple.
No shot. When?
I don't know. It's I think October 10th or something like that. I gotta take a look, but I will tell you guys this. I will say this. Last time I went to NXT house show in Michigan, it was at the Royal Oak Music Theater, and it was a fucking badass time. Like,
I've never been to an NXT show, and brother, I'm here to tell you, thank you for this. I am 1000% going.
It is a fucking blast. And if it's anything
I've
like
never
the last
been
time,
to an NXT show,
bro, we were there, and I'm not gonna say who because they're no longer in WWE. But there was a couple wrestlers at that time. It was the house show loop thing that they were doing. Me and my friends were like sitting, I don't know, second row. And a few of the wrestlers recognized me right away, got in my face. They were being a heel. And it was very, very fun because I remember having a conversation with them after. And I was just thinking about the reaction that everybody had. And we were chanting some crazy stuff. Nothing like out of line, but we were just chanting some crazy ass stuff and getting rowdy. And I remember that very moment because that's what made me fall in love. Yesterday we were talking about the smaller intimate shows. That was what made me fall in love with the smaller and intimate shows because it was such a good time. So listen, it's a possibility if I'm in town. I don't know if I'll be in town around that time, but
I'm gonna be there.
But it would be kind of nice to go.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it out there right now. I'm gonna buy tickets. I'll probably go get them today. Honestly.
Wow. Impulsive shopping. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Ango
Absolutely.
Show. That's the Ango Show. We're going to call it just a little bit early because there's a couple things to get done today, but we should be back tomorrow. Shout out to Billy.
Correct.
Make sure you guys follow and subscribe to Billy at BillyTKO. Click subscribe to me if you haven't. If you haven't clicked thumbs up on the stream, then that's really sad. And then shout out to It's Zabdi for the super chat as well. Thank you to everybody watching live on YouTube and Twitter, and we will see you guys tomorrow.